Okay, guys, that's just about everybody. Get started here. Thanks for being on time. Good to see everybody's whole faces for a change. Just a sec here. Are you guys seeing my agenda? Head nods, please. Okay, good. Funny things happen with my double screen when I try to share sound, which I'll need to do today. So, okay. Newsella, we do have a new article posted. It's about Hank Aaron, who passed away recently, baseball player. Give that a close read. Complete the 1 through 4 quiz as usual for good nonfiction multiple choice practice. Vocab, lesson 8, sections 1 through 4 in the book are due by tonight, if you haven't already done that. And grammar lesson 15 is due by tomorrow night. All right, so moving on in our new leadership unit, unit 3. And we're going to look at a poem today, over the next couple days, actually. I'm going to give you a day off from live sessions tomorrow since we've been here all 3 days, and we got the long day today. But there will be some work kind of extending on this as well as finishing your grammar tomorrow night. So it's called Ozymandias, is how you pronounce that. It's a poem by Percy Bysshe Shelley, an early 19th century romantic poet. Sounds like a woman's name, but that is actually a guy. There is a new assignment posted on StudySync, which I'll switch over to in a minute. We'll look at the intro video, which you'll complete notes. It's pretty much the same sequence as last time, although I'm not having you annotate the poem. We'll read and discuss the poem. It's a sonnet, talk about what that is. And then I'm gonna have you, like last time, hopefully talking more this time. I'll make nice big groups, breakout groups to complete the quiz. And it is only 5 questions. So we should have plenty of time to finish that. And then when you finish that, you can log off and work on the other 2 things, Sync TV and the Think questions, okay? Along with the work listed above, should be complete by tomorrow night. I'm not gonna ask you to finish it all tonight. We got vocab and grammar going on too. So we'll start working on it today. You can work on it some more today if you want, or you can put off the rest of it until tomorrow, as long as it's done by tomorrow night. Okay, so looking over on the classwork tab here first. Parts of this happen or are turned in rather in Google Classroom, and part of it is on StudySync, okay? So intro notes, which we'll do in a minute. Today, okay, not gonna be checked, but go ahead and do it today, right? And Sync TV, which you can do later, are both on this Access document, just like last time, okay? It just works better that way. The quiz, which you're gonna work through in groups, you can do, you'll do today and you'll complete today, right? And that's in StudySync, of course. And then Think questions, which are the extended response questions, we'll definitely do later, and those are also in StudySync. Okay, so same routine as last time, minus the annotations due by tomorrow night. Any questions about that? Okay, rather than go to StudySync yourself, why don't you guys just watch my screen for now? Oop, I'm gonna have to re-log in. Give me just a sec here. Kind of ridiculous how many screens I have to go through just to get back to an assignment. What am I gonna do? Okay, here we go. Okay, so no need to access the access. That sounds funny. Okay, Percy Bysshe Shelley, kind of reading the intro here. 1792 to 1822 is one of the most famous English romantic poets. He's known for his radical ideas and unconventional lifestyle, like the novel Frankenstein, which was written by his second wife, Mary Shelley, which you will probably read next year, sophomores, I believe. The poem Ozymandias that we're going to read was composed in response to a challenge. Shelley Percy Bysshe Shelley, the poet, and his friend Horace Smith submitted poems to the Examiner on the occasion of the statue of the Pharaoh Ramses II being transported from Egypt to London. So as you know, England was raping and pillaging half the planet and taking all their stuff. And so they were bringing this back. But the important thing is that this Egyptian Pharaoh Ramses II, I'm going to let Elliot in here, was a pretty cruel tyrant, was known as a pretty cruel tyrant, okay? Shelley's 14-line sonnet appeared in the paper first in January 1818. The imaginative poet invented a traveler in the poem and a sculptor's inscription evoking the ancient relic's ruin as a metaphor for the fall of dynasties and the limitations of tyrants. So the poem kind of ends up being about what lasts and what doesn't, right? And when you have a leader who is tyrannical and mean and enjoys his or her power, that person might think it's, you know, somehow going to be immortalized, right? Well, is it or isn't it? And then what other things are or are not immortalized?
London.
Okay, I'm going to pause that, maximize the screen. It's really loud for some reason. Turn the sound down some. All right, let me give you a sec. If you want to kind of access or split screen, you don't have to. Your intro notes to kind of fill this in as we go. Give me a sec. And then I will play this.
London, 1818. The grand statue of Egyptian pharaoh Ramses II is transported as a trophy to this fine European city. In recognition of the event, two poets, both masters of Romanticism, compete as to who is able to write the finest sonnet.
Quick pause. And the rest.
Using the statue's demise as a parallel to the inevitable decline of all leaders and their empires, no matter how great, Percy Bysshe Shelley's poem is published first. Read the inventive tribute to the immortal name of Ozymandias.
Okay, switching from there to the second tab, read, and here is the poem. Now notice, you can recognize sonnets a lot of the time because they're almost a square shape, maybe slightly tall rectangle. And the reason for that is they're always 14 lines long and they always have 10 syllables per line. That's called iambic pentameter. You might remember that, the name of that, what we call meter from Shakespeare, right? And actually the prologue, or what we call the chorus at the beginning of Act 1 and Act 2 of Romeo and Juliet were each sonnets themselves. And pretty much all of Romeo and Juliet, unless it's some servants talking for comic relief or something like that, is written in what we call iambic pentameter. Now, what is that? That means that there are 10 syllables per line, and they are arranged in pairs of unstressed and then a stressed syllable. So an iambic foot, is an unstressed syllable and a stressed syllable. That's a pair. If you put 5 of those in a row, that makes 10 syllables, right? So every line goes da-da, 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 da-da. Da-da, 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 and then you have rhymes at the end. Land, stone, sand, frown, command, read, things, fed, appear, kings, despair, decay, bear, and away. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time on rhyme scheme or anything. I'm just kind of pointing out to you how sonnets are, they're very symmetrical. It's a really strict form, and it's pretty much the one form that's never gone away. And most poets have always used, unless they tend to write in like totally like, you know, free verse or something like that. It's like a puzzle. Maybe some of you have written one for a class at one point. So you got to figure out a way to work that rhyme scheme, work in that meter, and then get ideas across. Okay, so you might also notice that, see if I can highlight here. No, I can't do it in my preview. Okay, that the ideas of the poem tend to be arranged in a group of 4, a group of 4, a group of 4, and a group of 2. Okay. Now, other thing I want you to notice as we read this is, or when we read poetry in general, something that you might not realize that you should get more and more used to is that you do not read, I mean, you want to keep in mind that you're coming to the end of a line, but that poems are not written with every line meant to be a sentence, okay? So you don't just read, I met a traveler from an antique land who said two vast and trunkless legs of stone. Stand in the desert near them on the sand. Okay, that's not getting across the logic and the grammar of the sentences. Okay, the sentences can stop in the middle of lines. They can go for multiple lines. Sometimes some poems are just one big long sentence. Some people do a sonnet. Sometimes they use commas and semicolons to weave it together. Where does the first actual sentence, if you can kind of zoom in on your computers, where does the first actual sentence end in this poem? In other words, where's the first period? Anybody speak up?
In the middle of the third line.
Middle of the third line. Who was that, Lily? Thank you. Good. Okay, so that's a sentence. And then where does the next sentence end? Not until all the way down here, right? Okay. And then we have another one starting with and. That goes to the end of this little quote here, despair, right, with the exclamation mark. Then we have this little tiny sentence here, nothing beside remains. Very short, simple, declarative sentence. And then around the decay goes through the end of the sentence. Now, the other thing that we want to keep in mind reading this is that there are multiple points of view, multiple speakers, and maybe even more points of view. I'm going to play the audio of this poem because it's there. The guy's voice is kind of goofy and overly formal, but it's a British voice, and I guess because we have a British poet here. So let me do that, and we'll listen to that, and then we'll kind of talk a little bit more about the structure, and then I'll put you in your breakout rooms to do the quiz.
Ozymandias. I met a traveller from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing besides remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
That was actually a recording of me just doing it in a British accent. How did I do? That's not true. Okay, so let's think a little bit about dividing this into figuring out who the speakers are, and then maybe we can figure out what's being said. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, there are actually 4 levels of what I would call point of view in this poem packed in here. So who's talking at first? Who's the I? I met a traveler from an antique land. We would assume that's basically what? Who's that person? Who's I?
I don't know how to say his name, but the person whose name starts with an O, like something.
Not Ozymandias. Nope.
The guy who wrote the poem.
The guy who wrote the poem. Yes, good job. Thank you, Alana. Okay, so I is, we could assume is Percy Bysshe Shelley, or certainly at least just the regular old speaker of the poem, right? And then I met a traveler from an antique land who said, and then we have this quote here. So starting with the word two vast and trunkless legs of stone. Who's talking now? Trace?
The traveler.
The traveler.
The traveler. You and Claire are both right. Yeah. We don't usually, always raise hands, and I don't make any rules about that, so no big deal. Now, where does that quote end? Where does that double quotation mark actually end? How long is the traveler actually speaking?
During the whole, from when he first begins talking to the end of the poem.
Good job. Through the whole rest of the poem. That's why these words here have single quotation marks around them, right? Because that is the traveler quoting somebody else's words at that point. Okay, so we'll get to that. Okay, so what does the traveler say? 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage, a visage is a face, lies. Now we would assume, of course, that's the face of, it's a statue of the face of who? Ozymandias, right? Because that's who the sculptor sculpted, the face of this tyrannical leader, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. Sounds like the sculptor made him to look pretty mean, right? Which is probably not what we've wanted. Tell that it's sculptor, the sculptor of this face, read those passions well. He says, well, those passions read, okay, kind of a inverted wording there, which yet survive, okay? So the wrinkled lip, the sneer of cold command, those survive, stamped on these lifeless things, pieces of the statue. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. So whose point of view do we kind of have here as far as depicting Ozymandias? Whose impression of Ozymandias do we hear described? Who made it? We don't know his name, but it's the what? The, not the poet, but the what? I see people saying words that are muted.
Is it the narrator?
Not the narrator. I mean, the traveler is telling all of it. The poet is telling what the traveler said, and this is still everything that the traveler said. But I'm asking, who mocked the features of Ozymandias on the statue? That's, of course, the sculptor, right? So we kind of have his point of view mixed in there too. All right. And the heart that fed those passions, and by passions, we mean his like meanness, right? Okay. And on the pedestal, these words appear. And now we have this in quotation marks. So allegedly, those are the words, obviously, of whom? In these two lines here.
Ozymandias.
Of Ozymandias. Okay, so we've got the point of view of the speaker of the poem. We could also call the narrator. We've got the point of view of the traveler who tells us all about this. We've got the point of view of the sculptor in the way that he depicted Ozymandias as like this, you know, horrible tyrannical leader. And then we've got the point of view of Ozymandias, who says, look on my works, ye mighty, and despair, which seems to kind of match up with the way that he was being depicted, that he was an arrogant, horrible person, right? Then the sentence right after, nothing beside remains. This is the traveler who continues to tell the story. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So what is left of everything that he built? Dust, right? It's all gone. So what statement is the poet making about what really lasts in the world and what doesn't, is what you should be thinking about as you try to interpret the poem. Okay, all right, that's enough breakdown. Let me switch over to breakout rooms. I'm gonna make them nice and large so you're not self-conscious. Not at all. Mr. Fisher's here. Say hi before you go to your breakout rooms. Let's do like we did last time. And when you get into your breakout room, let's have somebody, please, you guys were kind of quiet last time. Let's volunteer to have a group leader so I can give you a plus. And then let's talk through the quiz. When you're done with that, you can log off because it'll probably be near the end of the bell anyway. And then you have those other two things that you can work on for Friday. No live session tomorrow. Everybody all good? All right, 3 breakout rooms coming to you. Honors English 1. Yeah, they're analyzing a sonnet poem on Steady Sake, and we just broke breakout rooms. Then I usually I pop into each one and make sure that someone has volunteered to kind of run it, because when I don't, or if they don't know I'm going to come in, sometimes I'll come in and they're all just kind of sitting there working silently, especially if it ends up being a mix of quiet people. I found it works better if I make the groups kind of large, and then they don't feel like they're just, you always get at least a few people who will talk. No, I've been totally fine. For a while, first semester, I would have these kind of pile-ups getting the people into the Zoom sessions. Like it was just kind of clogged up, you know, like too much on the bandwidth or whatever. And then that seemed to kind of go away later in the semester, and I haven't had that problem in a long time. So maybe fewer people are doing live sessions than we're trying at first, maybe, I don't know. But everybody's doing it today, and it seems fine, so. Yeah, I'm sure that we're like trying in leaps and bounds to increase their overall capacity or whatever. I'm gonna pop into these groups here. Hey, guys, got a group leader working here?
That would be me.
You, Trace? All right, good. Thank you. All right, stay at it.
I was thinking B because
I think it's A. But I ain't.
Hey, guys, you guys got a group leader going in here?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes, it's yeah.
Can you tell me who it is?
It's me, Elena.
Okay. Thanks, Lena.
No problem.
Number 2 says, what is most likely the author's reason for telling the story as it was told to him by a traveler from an antique land?
Claire, are you doing a group leader in here? Just checking in?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. All right, stay at it, guys.